Welcome to Magical Mothering Method February's healing session. And this is also going to be the first podcast episode on Spiral of the Year. So, February, the month of love. I love February. My anniversary was yesterday. I love love. Magical Mothering is all about unconditional love and acceptance. I love all aspects of love: sensual love, romantic love, friendship love, motherly love, earth love, nature love. I just love love. It feels so good to love. And so I want to create some space right now to talk about some things that are not usually talked about, especially in the healing, mothering, crystal paradigm. And that is sensuality, female orgasm, female ejaculation, yoni eggs, pleasure, all of these things that are taboo in a sense in a lot of the mainstream world. And I'm excited to jump off my podcast with this episode in particular because it's been coming through my mind a lot, no pun intended. So let's start with what is love? That's kind of an interesting question. I don't think love has to be just love comes in so many shapes and sizes. And I get told a lot, even when I'm in a vending situation. I have a lot of people who I'm friends with, and I'm saying, "Hey, love you," and "See you soon. Bye. Love you, love you." And I say I love you a lot to a lot of people. And these people can be friends, they can be acquaintances, they can be my children, my husband. But the word love is used a lot in my home. It's used a lot in my Facebook. I love posts rather than like them. I call people by the name love. Hi, love. How you doing? And so the word love and that expression of love, I think we don't have to narrowly define it. I think it can be so much broader and so much more acceptable, but it's often awkward to use that same essence of love inward. We're almost taught that loving ourselves is a selfish act. And that's why there's such a big self-love movement, because for years, millennia, especially as women, not only were we not, actual humans, we were seen as property for the past 5,000 years. So self-love, self-pleasure, learning how to experience sensuality, experiencing love in a way that we're not deemed property, that we're truly loved for who we are and not the merits of our works or the expressions of what and who we are, is a big deal, is a really big deal. So there's so much here to unravel that I'm sure this is not going to be just one session in all of this, because I would like to get into doing some actual visualizations. I do have on my YouTube channel a womb healing. I have a whole yoni egg and womb healing video already on my YouTube. So I wasn't going to redo a visualization that I already have posted somewhere, but I did want to explore more of what is a yoni egg, what is pleasure, why do these things matter? And in the context of history, I think these things are really vital. I think they're very important. And I believe that as we begin opening up these conversations to what is possible and why would we even delve down those rabbit holes, or what does this have to do with healing, it's a really powerful aspect to realize that some of these conversations actually make us really uncomfortable. And that's a huge part of the healing process. What pieces and parts of sensuality, sexuality, pleasure, orgasm, sex, love, what types of these things and what emotions come up with these words? And oftentimes it's really just being able to feel our emotions and maybe respond in a way that we can actually voice those emotions and say, this makes me feel this way. Um, it took me many, many years coming from a place of being brought up in the Christian church. And I thought that when I got married, that all of the shame and guilt and judgment around sex would literally just disappear because I was married now. And it was such a horrifying realization that those feelings of shame and being dirty and having all of this guilt around sex did not just vanish because I said I do. And I went, oh gosh, this is serious. This is not okay. I got married. I should be free of this. And I just celebrated my 11th year wedding anniversary yesterday. So it did take a few years for those aspects of guilt and shame and the realization that these are innately human pleasure responses, and this is how we connect. And so I think a lot of what sex is, especially in the Western worlds and America with pornography and just this kind of heightened, violent, aggressive sex that is out there, it's very difficult for women to look at what is being portrayed to them out in the media to find out what's true for them in their own selves. There's not a lot of room for self-exploration, especially when you're already a mom, your kids are always around. It's not like you're really turned on there's so much there. And even if you're not a mom, if you're working a lot, if you're a man and you have a job that's physically exhausting, if you're always in your head having that monkey mind where your thoughts are always ruminating and maybe your anxiety level is always right there at the surface, there's so many things that actually can keep us debilitated from actually experiencing true sensual pleasure and excitement and orgasm and release. And there is a lot of research that I've done that, especially when you're looking at more tantric aspects of using the orgasm or the pleasure response to connect on a spiritual level. In the Bringing Cedar series, Anastasia kind of ruins it for the guy after they create a child because they don't even have sex. Their energies merge and they create a child through like this orgasmic all-consuming oneness. And he's like, I can't have sex after this. This was too great. Like, you just ruined the physical act of sex for me. So there is kind of this exploration of what are your parameters? What do you want your sensual pleasures to be? And I think these are so individualized. I know OnlyFans is a big thing now. And again, are you expressing it for yourself, for your own pleasure? Or are you seeking validation from that? Are you seeking acceptance from that? Are you seeking, outside aspects? So question everything, especially when it has to do with your own psyche, with your own influencing, especially with your own abilities to be or not to be okay with something. So yoni eggs are something that I was introduced to, I want to say, I guess my kids. So about 6 years ago, I used my first yoni egg. And it was really interesting. I love, in my human design, I'm a 1-3, which means that I'm investigative, and then I like to teach about it. So I love to dive down the rabbit holes. I love to do all the research and really investigate everything. And then I like to come back out of the rabbit hole and kind of share that knowledge and integrate it and experience and live it. So that for me is what I do in every aspect of my life. And so when I went in and did some research on yoni eggs, finding out that they were used in China for thousands of years, and I love Chinese medicine, I do herbalism, and so I honor and really love, again, that word, I really love Chinese medicine simply because they have thousands of years of data and usage and experiential logic and science behind Chinese medicine and acupuncture and that whole philosophy. There's so much there, and it's backed up by thousands of years of research, not just 3 or 5 or 100. So it does make a difference. And it's same with indigenous medicine. So when I do my own herbal practices and my own potion making and my own magic making, I really look to cultures that have been around a lot longer than American herbalism or even European herbalism. I try to go into sources such as Native American uses and the Chinese medicine, simply because there's a longevity to both of those aspects. Because in English or European herbal medicine, so much of the history was destroyed with the witch hunts, and so much of the practices with the church destroyed a lot of herbalism as well, making it a pagan aspect, making it a witch aspect, destroying thousands of years of knowledge to not, to bring medicine to the church. And that the church wasn't really the place. I have a belief system that nature has given us everything that we need to heal. And if we learn and utilize and become one with nature and extract the things that nature gives us freely, we can then heal our bodies. So what does all of this have to do with yoni eggs? So with that, yoni eggs is a practice that has been happening for thousands of years. So Gwyneth Paltrow got in a lot of trouble declaring that yoni eggs can help with all of these things. So I'm not going to say that on my podcast. It's just been that for thousands of years, the Chinese women and women since then have found that there is a possibility that you can have tightening of the vaginal canal, incontinence, or that laughing, peeing while you laugh or pee while you jump. Motions can get tightened so that you're not doing that so regularly. There's increased sensational aspects to it. So you actually have more sensation happening. Those nerve endings are actually getting used in a way that is really gentle, which is really opening. And especially when I prefer to use my yoni egg exclusively on my own. I do not use a yoni egg when I'm in partnership with my husband, simply because it is my sacred space and I'm really using it as a way to undo past traumas that I've had through sexual experiences. So when I first started using the yoni egg, I was healing a few rape instances that I had experienced. I was healing traumas from my labors and and then just traumas from giving myself away, right? So much of like that prostitute archetype is kind of wrapped up in the yoni egg, I feel like, because the prostitute archetype is really about giving ourselves away in return for something. So we physically give ourselves away with sex or with the things that we make or the way that we dress to get something in return, whether that's acceptance or love or security. And so the yoni egg, when you take it and you only use it in your own space, and sorry, men, women are the only ones that can use a yoni egg. The vaginal canal actually has like a ceiling, so it can't go into the body. if you were to stick it into any other holes. So this is not to be used in the rectum. It can actually go into the small intestines and you'd have to get it surgically removed. So that's not, yoni eggs are exclusively used in the vaginal canal. Just want to clarify that. So yoni eggs used as a personal, and I'm not saying that you can use it however you want. Again, personal experience, however you feel comfortable using one. I know some people even buy a yoni egg for their own use that might be a little bit larger. So here is a Carnelian Yoni egg. And I love the Carnelian Yoni eggs because they are orange. And so they go with the sacral center, which is that womb space. And so sometimes women get a little bit of a larger, and I get a lot of questions about the size, right? So size, I prefer something that you're actually going to feel, because the whole point of using a yoni egg is for it to be inserted and then for your muscles, the vaginal muscles, to squeeze it back out, okay? So you need the muscles to be able to wrap around something to squeeze out. If you use something so small that the muscles are not having to work, it doesn't give the same aspects. But a lot of women get a smaller egg so that they can use it during intercourse. And then some women get a larger egg so that they can use it on their own. So it's really about personal preference. I tend to end up getting eggs. I mean, they come in all widths and sizes. So yoni eggs. The color, I have colors for every color of the rainbow, and those kind of align with the colors of the chakra. So red or black would be the root chakra, which is really about feeling safe, feeling secure, coming back into your body, really helping those base foundational needs. Orange is that sacral color, again, that womb space, sensuality, money is in the sacral, prosperity, all of those kinds of things. Yellows are for the solar plexus, so tiger's eye, septarian eggs, things like that are for the solar plexus, that's confidence, self-esteem, things like that. Green or pink are for the heart chakra, unconditional love, self-love, acceptance, forgiveness, betrayal. That's held back here between the shoulder blades. So the heart chakra is a good one to use with a yoni egg, especially if there has been a lot of betrayal trauma held in the womb space through the heart, right? Blue is the throat chakra, really learning and healing the traumas for you not being able to communicate your needs, especially around pleasure, sensuality, getting your desires met, all of those kinds of things. The third eye is purple, and the purple one is really great for using more of like a tantric aspect, opening up that third eye, visualization, things like that. And then for the crown, I don't think I have one out, but I think I have one left. Clear quartz is a great universal one. Clear quartz can really be transformed into anything and then can be used for all aspects. So I know I'm kind of trying to cover a lot of bases right now, but the yoni egg is really about being able to feel. And I know, I'm going to speak for myself personally, that there have been times in the past that during sex, I zone out, or I, kind of just like, okay, and especially when it was prior to a lot of my healing journey, when I had sex as an obligation versus as a pleasure. And this happens in relationships. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just sometimes it happens. And so by bringing a yoni egg into your life, you can almost reactivate the sensations that feel good, because you're in control of the movement. You're in control of how big or little it is. You're in control of how your muscles actually are working to expel the yoni egg from your vaginal canal. And all of these things are really important to build strength in. And then the ultimate reason why I choose a yoni egg versus a vibrator or anything else that might be like that is for the aspect that it is a healing. So the crystals themselves are going inside or not. Sometimes you can even just take a yoni egg and hold it where it would be sitting. Okay. And you can hold it externally there if that's something that feels comfortable. So don't feel like you even have to insert it. I often recommend women just holding their yoni egg in their pocket or every night, before you go to bed, over yourself and get really familiar, feel so incredibly safe with it. This is what it's for. It's not just to shove up there like everything else. It's really about creating a connection with the crystal and allowing for that crystal to connect energetically with us so that it can hone in and find those traumas that are stuck in the physical membranes in the physical body, because our traumas too do get stuck in our physical body. As a massage therapist, I'd massage so many people that it would be like, why isn't this releasing? And it was a memory attached to it. And as soon as they started sharing and working through the traumas of the memory, then that part of their body actually would physically release as well. So much of this journey is mentally being present enough to physically experience the emotions, the push and pull of the egg, what memories come up, and being able to be brave enough to have a journal and write out those memories, get them out of our physical body. I always suggest using a yoni egg in a bath, simply because women are juicy. Women have a lot of juices, and you could accidentally pee while you're pushing it out, and it's all those things. And so being in a bath space is really nice because you don't have to worry about making a mess. And there's so much shame involved with like the fact that we have this juice that gets everywhere and it's messy, and there's often this kind of like, there's a dirtiness associated with it at sometimes, at least if you were raised how I am. This is my own personal experiences of moving through this. And so in the bath, it's just a really relaxing space. If you don't have a bath or you don't have that option, I recommend laying down some towels in a bed and making your bed kind of really comfy and warm, and surrounding yourself with pillows and blankets, and just being able to really release in a way that feels comfortable. And so by having the towels there, you don't have to worry. And this is the same for learning how to ejaculate. Women can learn how to come just as men do. And yet it takes a lot of practice, because again, for thousands of years, we were property. We were not humans that had our own sensual needs and desires. And while there were probably, I'm assuming, quite a few women in history that were given the luxury of being able to hone those skills, it was probably because they were actually in a role of, a sex worker in a way. They worked for the king, or they were a concubine, or they had a special talent, right? And they were sought after all over the country because of their ability to ejaculate. But as the average woman, this was not something that you could really play with in a way that made sense. You couldn't just hone your ejaculation skills in the past. You were too busy raising children and having all of these other things that you had to do, to have the frivolity of being able to just learn how to do a skill that wasn't pertinent, right? I'm sure men would have really enjoyed it if they would have realized that we could have had that skill, and they would have given us the time to do it. But that's neither here nor there. So there's a lot wrapped up in our history, in our emotional capacity, in our ability to be cognizant of what we actually feel. So a yoni egg and pleasure and all of these aspects. And if you'd like for me to go into more detail, I can get some diagrams and pictures, like drawings and stuff of how to actually learn how to female ejaculate. So if you're interested in that, please let me know and I can make a blog post about it, giving more detail. Otherwise, you can look it up. There are whole podcasts dedicated just to that practice. So as we move into or through to pleasure, pleasure doesn't have to just be sensual. Pleasure doesn't have to just be sex. Pleasure doesn't just have to be like touch and feel. There can be so much more that is pleasurable. I'm writing my book right now, and I'm really writing it. I've been writing a book for about 6 years, and it's now coming through, like all the pages are coming through and where everything's going is coming through. And that is so pleasurable. There's such a sense of accomplishment within that is coming through right now, of being able to articulate and space and beautify all of these expressions and things that I've learned and that I am so passionate about, that I get to put into this beautiful work and birth this into the world. It is extremely pleasurable. And this brings me to that book, Orgasmic Birthing. I truly believe that prior to women not being equal, I believe there was a time, and it was most likely about more than 5,000 years ago, that women were equal. They were equivalent with men. And at that time, because they were not enslaved or property, they were able to enjoy the pleasure of birth. And I don't believe that just, it says in the Bible that women are meant to toil through labor. And I personally don't believe that's true, because I've seen hypnobirthing and orgasmic birthing, and I know that there can be so much pleasure in the birthing experience. So I think that's actually a belief system that has caused more pain during labor. But that's just my own. I'm going to be saying a lot of kind of things that are outside of the box. And I really just want to reiterate that these are my belief systems, and I honor whatever you believe. If you'd like more information about anything that I have to say and are curious about where I'm going with all of this, please feel free. Let's extend this conversation. I have a Facebook group, and I'm on YouTube, I'm on Instagram, I have a TikTok. So if any of those aspects, if you're wondering how to get a hold of me, or maybe wondering what more there is, or what I'm talking about in more detail, or you want me to do more podcasts about certain subjects, please let me know so that we can continue this and go deeper into this understanding. And so with orgasmic birthing, again, that's a sensual aspect. They say that the same way that you make the baby is the same experience that you should have having it. And that's a really revolutionary statement, especially because most women are going into the hospitals having a baby hooked up to all these tubes and drips and IVs and monitors around their belly. They can't move, they can't express in a way that they would have creating the baby. And so there is a aspect of really unraveling our misperceptions or our current perceptions around every aspect of life. And that's really what this is going to be. The spiral of the year and the magical mothering method, and even magical mothering itself, is all about remembering and looking at the way that we just do things, so that we're not just doing them anymore, so that there's an intention behind them, so that there's a thoughtfulness, so that there's a mindfulness in every detail of your life, so that you're living an intentional life. And to me, that's what magical mothering is really taking the mundane aspects and making them magical, making them extremely pleasurable. And this is a way to wake up and be turned on in life. And that is really what this whole thing is about. For me, it is about helping people, mainly women. I do work mainly with women, helping them get turned on to life. And especially when like the mundane of the dishes and the cooking and the cleaning and the work and the driving to work and the commuting and the being on Zoom calls all day and having the migraines and gaining the weight and all of the things that just play out in life, getting the bills, you know what I mean? Like all of these things add up. And if you think about it, every day there could be something that could potentially take your turn on away. You know, you getting a bill in the mail or getting, you know, having to use a credit card and being in debt. And this reminder of being indebted, being a slave is a huge turnoff. And this is why being indebted is such a powerful way to control people. When people are in debt, they are controllable. They're slaves. They have to stay in the system. They have to work. They have to make money. They have to. And that is a huge turn off. Suddenly we're going, "Oh, how do we make money? How do I do this? I don't have enough. There isn't enough." And we've stepped away from gratitude. We've stepped away from being intentional. We've stepped away from our rituals. We've stepped away from knowing that we're an independent, free human being because we're a slave. And so I currently had to get back into debt in order to purchase the property that we're on. So I'm speaking from experience. The past 3.5 years, I was completely debt free. And I was a free human being. There is a different feeling to it. So there's, again, tons of podcasts about how to get out of debt. I would highly suggest looking into that aspect as well. But the whole point of that is when you have the ability, and you can get turned on in debt, I promise. It's not something, I don't want anything that I'm saying to go, "Oh, okay, so when I do that, then." No, we're not doing that here. It is, let's do that now as you're getting out of debt. Let's do this now while you're playing with these other healing aspects. Let's create pleasure now. Let's create being turned on now. There's no waiting. You don't need the perfect environment. You don't need to move. You don't need a new job. You don't need a different boyfriend. I mean, you might, but you don't need to get rid of your husband. Like, you don't need to do anything differently in order to completely change your life now. So, how do we do that? How do we start getting turned on? And so I just want to sit back and just see for a moment where in your body, and if you're driving or if you're in somewhere that you can't do this, like, don't close your eyes. If you can just tap into it, you know, that way, but be mindful of your environment. So tap into where in your body do you feel turned on. Some people, it might be very clearly like you can feel it more in the vaginal opening, more in the clitoris, more in the taint area. You might feel it very much in your root chakra. Others, you might feel turned on like in your heart space. Your heart space might open up and you're like, "Ooh, yeah, that feels really good," right? Or you might feel turned on intellectually. You might just be so revved up in your intellectual capacity that like you get turned on doing crossword puzzles or Sudoku. Totally possible. So I really want us to just see where in our bodies, where is our turn on? Where is that? How do we move that space? How do we rev that engine up a little bit more, right? So just kind of sense where it is. And then I want you to imagine that you've got like from 1 to 10, okay? You've got this dial in front of you. And while we're sitting here, I want you to turn the dial up, okay? Just to like 1, just turn the dial up and see if you can actually control this turn on feeling. And again, it can be very sensual and sexual, or it can be very intellectual. It could be very loving and nurturing. It can be, but I want it to be really turned on, like really excited, really open. You should feel your chest opening. You should feel your heart opening. You should really feel your whole body wanting to open up to this experience, and no bringing your shoulders in, no like curling up should be happening. No, everything should be pulling towards your back and opening. Like you should want to open your legs, you should want to open your arms, you should really want to maybe moving. You should feel like this opening that is happening in your space. Okay. And so now what happens if we turn it up to 3? Continue. Maybe adding some movements to this, maybe like doing little circles with your hips, or pulling open your chest and opening, bringing your shoulders together, opening your body and seeing if there's this aspect or this way to feel more turned on. Okay. And we're going to level it up to like 5. Okay. And we're going to stop there because you can do the dial the rest of the way when you're on your own. But this is a really interesting, like, feel in your body. As your body starts tingling, there should be like some very real sensations of just tingling sensations. And every cell is like hyper aware. This is being turned on, being so in the moment that like you cannot wait. Like you can even touch your own skin and you can feel this tingling and this vibration of just being turned on. And it's very exciting. It's very exhilarating. It's full of vitality because that's what life is. And so if you start living from this place of being turned on rather than turned off, right? And just like, I'm not in the mood. I know that it's so easy to go there. Or I've got to do the dishes and the laundry and the housekeeping and go to work, and I'm tired when I get home and I still have to do all this stuff. Stop. Okay. Just I get to that mindset too, but when you get to that mindset, you literally want to like put a huge stop sign in front of your face and just stop. Okay. So you get in your car and you're going to work, get turned on, turn it up to like 5 and just like, oof, get turned on. I don't care if you like your job, get turned on. Because if you are turned on and you are like, your engines are revved up all the time, just enough, people are going to be like, whoa, whatever you do is going to be turned on that much more. And then from there, it's just exponential. Then you're turning on the people around you because they can feel that energy and they don't know what it is, because nobody walks around turned on, right? Like, so as you're walking around and doing what you get to do, not what you have to do, you get to cook dinner, you get to do the dishes, you get to put your kids to bed, you get to drive away in a car, like you get to live in a house, you get to have nice clothes, you get to put shoes on. Like when you're turned off, there's no gratitude. There's just this victim of having to do everything. When you start getting turned on, everything is like, wow, I get to put on these amazing clothes. I get to go to the store. I get to buy groceries. I get to pay my bills. I get to drive away in a car. I get to have a job. Everything becomes so immersed in gratitude because you're just turned on. And just like when you have really good sex, when I have really good sex, I say thank you. And I say it all the time. We say, like, I just thank you. Thank you for being present with me. Thank you for creating this experience. Start being grateful for these experiences and start getting turned on prior to even being intimate with another person. Get turned on prior to that so that your engines are revved up, so you are in the mood. I get it. There's so many emotions that can turn off this turned on. It's so easy to get the switch flipped off. But I want us to create so many intentional moments in our day. And that's really what the book is about, is creating ritual and rhythm, and connecting to nature through herbal medicines and herbal lore, that everything in nature is a reminder to get turned on. Everything from the sunrise to the sunset to the moonrise to the stars to the trees out your window to the birds, to, like, you will have so many intentional reminders all day. Even if you're stuck in a building, when you look out, or maybe you'll have a calendar that has nature, like, anything in nature is going to be a reminder to get into that intentional space and to get turned on and to be turned on and to just find pleasure in all of it. The good, the bad, the ugly, the brilliant, the dumb, the horrific. Find ways to just allow for your body to experience all of these sensations in a way that has no judgment or no perceptions of judgment. And suddenly it's like, oh, that's scary, right? We're like uninhibited. There's no fear. We're just feeling without this judgment. The anxiety starts diminishing because it becomes curiosity. There's so many aspects that can happen through this aspect of pleasure. And so I'm hoping there's going to be some questions from this, because this is a topic I really, really enjoy. And I am going to expand on this through podcasts in the future about the rhythm method and like using herbs as contraceptives or as birth control, really gaining ownership of our bodies. Because again, we've only been free human beings that are not property. I'm speaking of us as women, for a few hundred years. Like, that's not very long. We only got the right to, like, we haven't even been able to vote very long. We have been property for so many millennia. So giving back women to themselves and giving back ourselves to each other and allowing for us to not own or dominate anybody in our lives. You do not own your husband, you do not own your children, you do not own your wife. Like, they are free human beings who are choosing to be with you. And that is a powerful way to experience a lot of pleasure. When you realize that these beings in your life actually are choosing you as their mother, they're choosing you as your wife, suddenly you have value. You are worthy. If you get a compliment about anything, your looks, your cooking, your smile, your abilities at doing your job well, these are all aspects that are so profound and need to go into like a bank to turn that dial up and keep that dial, that pleasure dial, that turned on dial. Every time you get a compliment of doing something well, and you might have to just give yourself a compliment every day. I know that there's so many ways to do this. You can get a jar and write out a compliment a day, put it in the jar, and on your birthday, read all the amazing things that you know about yourself. There's so many ways to do this and really light up your life. And so this is really about, especially this month, being turned on to life and allowing for our lives to be a light, allowing for our lives to be lit up, to be turned on, to receive pleasure in everything that we do, whether it being experiencing a yoni egg or amazing sex, to cooking a delicious meal, to having an amazing awe-inspiring moment of watching the sunrise or the moonrise, being in a space where you have eyesight and hearing, that you can look at birds crossing the sky. Like, there's so much to be in gratitude about and to be turned on in life about, that you just have to get the dial turned up a little bit. And then as you start getting more and more turned on to life, the dial is going to go up higher and higher. And soon you're going to experience pleasure in so many aspects of your life that it's going to be remarkable. There's going to only be these few moments of having drama or emotional aspects. And so much of the magical mothering method is that system, that step by step for 52 weeks of giving you exactly the tools that are needed to go through and create new coping skills so that you can really use life and be turned on by it and use it to create the life that you desire, the life of your dreams, rather than going through this life that is hard and miserable and a struggle and dramatic. Like you're choosing that right now. And that's harsh to say, but you're choosing that because at any moment you can decide to choose something new. And it doesn't have to be radical. You can actually take the steps to really do it in a way that's really loving and supportive. And I do help women do this. I help women go through step by step, completely recreating their own lives to make their lives the magical lives of their dreams. So I'm excited to hear about your own turned onness. I want to hear where it's stored and what it feels like. And if that dial worked, I want to hear from you. I want to know if you have any more questions about yoni eggs. I want to know, where are you? Like, has life been turned off and you're kind of excited about this aspect of it being turned on? Um, I'm really looking forward to it. If there's anything else that sparked any aspects in you, I'm very much looking forward to hearing from you and finding out how we can create and play more in this realm of unlimited possibilities. So I will see you soon. I love you, and peace and blessings.